I have a confession to make. I'm not just a Persona fan. I'm also a Sonic fan. While I wouldn't say I played every single game the franchise has to offer, I played most of the popular ones. And with the release of Sonic X Shadow Generations, also known as a re-release of a game that I have almost 100 hours on, I felt like there was no better time than to discuss something that's always been on my mind. Should Sonic completely abandon the boost formula? In a time where Sonic is supposedly in this new era with the style of gameplay Frontiers has to offer, I see more than ever trying to distance away from what originally was a very novel concept for the series. See, before games like Sonic Forces, the boost formula, as a lot of fans call it, was pretty complex. Being able to run really fast at the tap of a button while dodging obstacles, it's awesome. It's an all-around very addicting gameplay system, and I still feel like there's a lot of untapped potential here. So that's what we'll focus on today. I'll be going over the things I really enjoy about the boost titles, what's made some people so against this mechanic, and see if there's any way we can still save it for whenever the next true installment in the series comes around. So grab a chili dog, cause this is our look at Sonic's boost formula. As always, before we start, I just want to say that if you're enjoying our productions, or you want to see more Sonic-related stuff from us, be sure to press that subscribe button. And while you're at it, be sure to check out any of our other platforms if you haven't already. With that said, let's begin. In order to fully understand the boost formula, let's go over a quick recap on the main mechanics of it. For the purposes of this production, we'll be focusing on the iterations of the boost used in Unleashed and Generations, mostly since they demonstrate the capabilities of the gameplay the best. The way it works is very simple. Usually you're given one long path that you're meant to traverse through while dodging obstacles, whether it be sliding, changing lanes, or simply boosting against several enemies at a time. Oftentimes, there could be certain paths that behave as shortcuts, letting you skip parts of a level for a faster record. In the end, the goal is to finish the level as fast as possible by finding the shortest routes and making little to no mistakes. This may be a hot take, but this is probably one of the best ways to demonstrate what Sonic is all about. There's a whole discussion about how Sonic should be translated into 3D, but I feel like this one captures the most of what makes Sonic so appealing: the speed and the spectacle. When looking at any sort of Sonic media, one of its key selling points is the idea that this, well, hedgehog is able to go at insane speeds while almost being a show-off. Like he knows what he's doing and he's just having fun. That's exactly the vibe I feel when playing the boost games. The level design, the scenery, just everything about the system makes these levels so incredibly fun to go through. I hear a lot of complaints saying that having Sonic being able to boost makes this game not as interesting. Mostly since speed isn't a reward anymore, since it's always at your disposal. But honestly, I think that's just a misunderstanding of what the boost formula is all about. The game wants you to use the boost, it's just that the reward here is maintaining that same speed throughout the entire level. It's hard to explain, but being able to go at those speeds, blast through all the obstacles while trying to react in time is so much fun. It feels like you're driving a car, but you're in a rush, so you're trying to race and find the best possible routes to where you want to go. Also, can I just say that the levels featured in both of these games are pretty lengthy? No joke, you'd be taking around 3 to 5 minutes on some of these. It's all great stuff. And that's not even mentioning the amount of replayability in this playstyle. Sonic games by design are meant to be replayed multiple times. Want to get a better record? Practice the controls, learn the level, and you'll see major improvements. However, in all of Sonic's different playstyles, I'm willing to argue that in the boost formula's case, it's a lot more integral to actually enjoying the game. Well, sure, you can apply this same philosophy in the 2D and adventure titles, they always felt like you can enjoy them pretty casually. Even if it's your first time playing them, I'd still say you can beat those games just fine. Sonic Unleashed and Generations, on the other hand, are much more punishing if you don't know what you're doing. I'm an avid Unleashed player, and I'll gladly admit I still have difficulties beating some of these levels. This may sound like a problem to some, but in my opinion, this only makes these games much more enjoyable. Not only does this approach make them more engaging, but it also adds a sense of challenge that I've never really seen in the other mainline titles. With the exception of the 2D games, but that's just me not being a fan of that playstyle. The point I'm trying to get in the end is the boost formula has a lot more depth than what you may give it credit for. Once you fully understand the different obstacles and paths you take, the game really shines and feels very fun to play. So you may be asking, what made the boost formula so hated? And what's with the sudden need to move on from it? Well, there's several reasons. One of those being the attempts done in the more recent releases. If you've been a Sonic fan, you've likely heard of the whole boost to win argument going around these games. Basically what it boils down to is these games hold your hand so much that you can practically boost through them with no consequences. This was a result of how Sonic Forces chose to simplify what made the boost game so enjoyable. Instead of using your reactions and knowledge of the level to be as fast as possible, you can quite literally as people say, boost to win. I'm not even joking. I've seen a lot of Sonic Forces gameplay, and most of it outside of 2D platforming revolves around you boosting past enemies with no effort. It's depressing, and it hurts me seeing how much this one entry tainted the entire reputation of this playstyle. I suppose I should also bring up the other elephant in the room. Making these sorts of levels does not look cheap. Think about it. You're going as fast as possible through a pretty detailed stage with different props and environments. Developing all of that and making one long obstacle course that could last you at least over 2 minutes doesn't sound like an easy task. If that's the case, how can we make the boost formula work? It seems to be more problematic than it's worth, right? Well, not entirely. In fact, I'd argue that there's still a way we can make it work. And that is where Sonic Frontiers comes into play. You see, even though Frontiers is mostly played through its open zone gameplay, there's also what's called the Cyberspace levels. These are meant to be bite-sized boost levels. They're significantly shorter than the levels in Unleashed and Generations, and despite what people have said about them, I actually really like them. They're weird though, because one of the biggest changes done to the boost was that now you're basically vulnerable to enemies, meaning you can't just dash on them anymore to kill them. It also feels significantly weaker in general, less speed, and doesn't make you feel as strong visually. This may sound like a downgrade, but if anything, I kinda like it. It makes it so you use the boost as, well, a boost. Just something to use strategically for platforming rather than something to keep at all times. Believe me, I've seen some insane things people have done with these Cyberspace levels and it looks so much fun. That could have never been possible with the original boost formula. But that's not to say it isn't without its faults. While these Cyberspace levels are a good twist on the original gameplay and pretty fun when used as more of a supplement instead of the main game, it's pretty wonky to control. It's hard to explain, but Sonic feels very slow in these. Like, too slow. The homing attack takes about a decade to perform, and Sonic's normal speed is a bit too finicky. Combine that with this god-awful turning, and you have a pretty mediocre section of what's a pretty solid game. Despite that, I still see the vision, and there's potential for growth here. Like the rest of Frontiers, the overall polish of the game is all it really needs to make these levels incredibly fun. Make Sonic feel faster, fix the homing attack, and embrace the platforming featured in these levels. Yet, at the same time, make it possible so players can jump sections of these levels by properly using the boost and physics to their fullest. Think of it like doing parkour in real life. In all honesty, I want Sonic Team to continue experimenting with the Cyberspace levels, as if done right, this can be a perfect evolution of the boost formula. Now, okay, you may be wondering in the end, why am I even discussing this? Why do I want Sega to continue doing the boost formula if fans seem so tired of it? Well, for one, here at Mintjoy, we always give only the best of the best takes in the world. But in all seriousness, even though I'm not someone who's ever spoken about Sonic on the channel, and even if I'm not as diehard as other people in the fandom, I still really like these games. I feel like the boost formula has become a punching bag due to a few bad decisions over the years. On top of that, there's just a lot of untapped potential for what could be a pretty fun gameplay loop. Sonic Frontiers isn't my most played game in the franchise, but I can definitely see the kind of vision they're trying to go for with this open zone gameplay. That, and combined with these Cyberspace levels, count me in. This production is just a fun experiment and something I've been wanting to do for a long time. Hopefully once we see the next true mainline Sonic game, they take these sorts of things into consideration. As the saying goes, only time will tell. And with all that said, I really hope you all enjoyed this production. This is my first time ever talking about Sonic on the channel, so this did take us a little longer than usual. Who knows, maybe we'll do more Sonic productions in the near future. Now, if you excuse me, I'll go play some Generations for another 100 hours. The modding scene in that game is insane, and hopefully there's no chance of a game making it obsolete. You've got to be kidding me.